where you kill them after second cleaning.
Your pond can freeze on top, but it won't freeze all the way through, and your fish will do fine. EPDM liner is the appropriate material.
Nobody talks about these things. Hello there. Another day, a very different topic today. I'm with Mike Gannon, a gentleman who helped me build our pond. You would have seen by now an episode a few weeks ago where that pond was cleaned. I'll let Mike introduce himself, and then we'll keep on talking and discussing what the philosophy behind his pond building. And now he runs a second business also. Mike, up to you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming out. I'm very happy to be talking with you today. My name is Mike Gannon. My company is Full Service Aquatics, and we are a koi pond, water garden, and water feature company, and we specialize in the construction, maintenance, and services of all types of water features, koi ponds, and water gardens. And that was started back in 1995. We met after that, of course, and we put a pond in at your place. And more recently, we started a retail center called That Pond Place, which is in Stewartsville, New Jersey, which is in the beautiful highlands of New Jersey. It's a wonderful place to come and visit. We've created a destination location here for anything you need for pond keeping, whether it's live fish, koi, goldfish, aquatic plants, huge variety and assortment, and all the pond equipment and supplies that you would need for a successful pond keeping experience.
Let's start with some of the questions. We've already shared the questions. Just want to be straightforward. What we do is on a shoestring budget. You know that already. We're just trying to be friends over here. So what are some of the most common reasons you think people do build a pond in their front or backyard?
Yeah, people build them for many reasons, right? I mean, everybody has a reason to build a water feature. The most common reasons kind of break down into they're either doing fish keeping, which is a great reason to build a backyard pond, or perhaps they're into water gardening, which is the aquatic plant part of it, or a lot of people simply want a water feature. They want the aesthetics of bubbling water and the sound audio that it offers to the backyard. So those are kind of the three main reasons that people are doing the type of projects that we work on. And sometimes it's a combination of all three. You get the aesthetics, you get the water garden, you get the fish keeping, you get the whole package.
So actually, to add on this one, when we started talking, I have a gazebo behind where the pond is right now. And sitting over there, the issue is where I live, I am 3 houses away from a main road. And I kept on hearing the noises of cars, and there was no way I could get rid of it. So my initial point was to have a water feature so that noise goes away. Actually, it's not going away, but at least I'm hearing the waterfall. From there, the whole concept of having fish, I was very nervous about it because I never had fish in my life. Had a couple of times in life have a small fish tank where you kill them after second cleaning. And so I had no clue, but when Michael came and he started explaining to me. And then third, since I love gardening and everything like that, putting that new dimension to have greens and flowers was very important, or became important. So yes, in my case, all three, but they did not happen at the same time. They happened gradually. When you and I met, we met through a social media, not a social media website, but house or something like that.
Yes.
And before that, I had already talked to somebody else, and I mentioned that to you also. Issue happened with that company was they were not understanding my concept. The rocks, he was trying to do beautiful rocks, surely beautiful, but very shiny.
Mm-hmm.
And that would look very nice if this was a front yard pond for me.
Yeah.
But this was really in the backyard. I wanted a very earthy tone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for the very first time you came, we discussed that. How did you go about finding all those rocks?
Well, I have a couple of guys who actually go out and do that. So they specialize in finding rock, sourcing rock from different locations. We try to keep most of the species we work with pretty native to the area. So I don't want rock coming in from Arizona to go into your backyard. So I work with guys who are collectors of rocks in the local area.
So then, since I had no clue, and Michael was very generous. He lived not too far from me back then. He invited me over to his backyard, and he had a beautiful, beautiful, huge backyard pond with a lot of huge koi fish. So when I saw it, then I started visualizing what it would be. I think if Michael would have just shown me some pictures, that might not have done it. But seeing the pond live helped me a lot. And I think what you're doing over here, his pond place right now, he has some small ponds. So if somebody wants it, come and have a look, and you'll have
Yeah,
general idea what it would look like in your backyard.
sure.
One of my concerns was how big or small a pond should be, and I remember you mentioning that let you decide that. Something to that effect. Do you remember that conversation?
Yes.
Because my concern was as a consumer that, okay, if it's 6 foot, it'll be this much money. If it's 10 foot, it'll be this much money. So I was also concerned about how much I will spend. And ponds can get expensive. And I will ask Mike just to have an idea so people in this area, and he can also explain what regions, I think Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or wherever he services, he can answer that. But for me, I was a bit concerned. Mike took all the worries away from me. He said, "Give me the license and I'll do it." By the time it's done, the pond was much bigger than what I expected. Now, as a nervous consumer again,
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, he told me this much money. Now I'll say, by the way, the pond became bigger. Now I need plus this much.
Right.
And that never happened. That's where our friendship started in a way. So it's surely business also for him, but there's a friendship also. He has helped me find right places to get the fish, always given me the right advice, even to the point over the weekends, something happening to fish, call him, text him. He has answered me. Very helpful, very helpful, very helpful. So anything you would like to add, Mike, over here?
Yeah, I try to work with clients, most people who are going to build a pond. They know they want a pond. They really don't know exactly what they want exactly. They may have an idea of size and dimensions, but beyond that, it really is kind of in the ethos. And my job is to extract information from them to start putting together a picture of what they actually want. Over the course of 30 years of building ponds, my method of doing that has gotten better and better. So I think I hit the mark more and more with clients in giving them what they're looking for. It's funny because you mentioned size. And a lot of times when we build a pond, we will go over size a little bit. It's what I do is a cross section of so many things. Of course, it's a business, right? So you want to stay within a client's budget, and I don't want to get killed on a project, but there's art to it also, and it's an extremely creative process. So when I'm building sometimes, even though we said, let's do this, sometimes it just makes sense to expand it a little bit because visually it will fit the space better, it's properly scaled, and I'm okay with doing that as long as it's not a major change in the design. If I can push it out a little bit and make it look better, that's my goal, and I'm happy to do that. And it made you happy.
Surely. That process actually taught me a lot, and I would like you to, because you explained to me, but many people would not realize that koi goes in hibernation in cold regions, and you can have them outside. Because many people still ask me, do the fish stay out during the winter? I said, yeah. So you need to explain the depth and everything.
Yes.
And then the whole concept of the cave, which I never understood. You have to explain these two things because when I said I had no clue, when I explained to other people, they also as clueless as I am.
Right. So the depth, we like to have our clients be able to keep their fish outdoors all year round. So you don't have to bring them in and have a whole different setup for 5 months out of the year. What we build also can run year round. There's lots of ways to build ponds. Most of them may not allow you to run a pond year round. Ours can, and that's very important as far as the enjoyment of pond keeping, but also for the health and quality of life for your fish and livestock. So in New Jersey, and it depends on the area that you are, there are certain depths that you should dig down to make sure that the ground insulates your pond. The ground temperatures really don't fluctuate that much, whether it's winter or summer. It's usually around 55 degrees. So to get down to those temperature ranges, we dig our ponds between 24 to 30 inches typically, and we can go much deeper for other client requests. But 24 to 30 allows you to keep your fish outdoors year round. Your pond can freeze on top, but it won't freeze all the way through, and your fish will do fine. The hibernation, which the fish go into, typically starts around December. It's actually called torpor. It's not a full hibernation, but their metabolism shuts down, their respiration goes to a minimum, their heartbeat really slows down, and their activity levels are very low. And their food requirements are extremely low. So there's really not much you do for your fish in the winter. And when March or April in the New Jersey, this area rolls around, they start ramping back up their activity and their appetite. And pretty soon pond season has started and we're all out having a great time together.
The other thing which, again, I was confused and many people have asked me, the liner you use.
Yes.
So there are two things which are man-made, even though it looks natural. And I always tell them it took a lot of hours to make it look as natural as it looks. There's a whole pump running which circulates the water from one side to the other. And then there's a liner in the bottom which protects the water does not goes into the ground. Can you please explain both?
Yes. So there's different ways to line ponds. Basically, we want a non-permeable liner, so the water, of course, stays in your pond. We use EPDM, which is a flexible, heavy-duty rubber sheeting, and it is flexible, so when we dig it out, it conforms to the shape of the pond, which really allows us, again, to be very creative in how ponds are presented and how they look. But that material has a very long ability. They last about 40 years or more, and they hold water in there very nicely. You could do cement, you could do some other types of approaches, fiberglass and other types of liners, but I just don't find them to be effective. And I find that in the New Jersey area, given our conditions, EPDM liners is the appropriate material.
Now, what about the pump? How do you figure that out? Because I remember you mentioned, because I asked you the size and you gave me a rough idea how many gallons this would be, but you told me that the pump was much bigger than what the need of the pond was. So there's some science behind that also.
Yeah, there's two considerations with pumps. The one is its functionality, meaning that you want it to be circulating the correct amount of water to properly have your filtration system be optimized. So with a pond, let's say your pond is, I think your pond is around 2,000 gallons approximately. So we want that pond to turn over twice an hour. So usually I would say, let's do a 4,000 gallon per hour pump. Now that's going to be the functional part of it, that it gives you the appropriate circulation filtration. But then there's aesthetics too. You want the waterfall to look good. So sometimes you may need a little more water to have that waterfall presentation. So those are the two considerations. We usually try to design it in a way that the turnover rate is going to still look good in a waterfall presentation.
Because waterfall was one thing which at one point I wanted to go higher, but there was cost involved, so I didn't. Now I wish that I would have, because when I'm sitting there, I do see it, but if I would have gone higher, I would have been able to see from my kitchen window. Would have looked beautiful, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to share about pond? Because you would have met many customers. They would have come with the same kind of questions.
Yeah.
What are the other apprehensions that you typically have to answer?
Well, I think as far as apprehensions, most people who come to me know they want it, so they're not apprehensive about that. Budget is always a big consideration and apprehension. Ponds can get very expensive. They can get very expensive. But I would say the next consideration is maintenance. What do I need to do to keep this looking good and running and healthy? Those are the main considerations. So we try to address those on the front end by being very open about what things cost and allowing our customers to create within their comfort level of what they want to invest. These are long-term investments. I look at them that way. Ponds are going to be around for a long time in your yard. And then when it comes to the maintenance, which is the other concern, I've said before, even just before, there's many ways to build a pond. Some of them, you're going to be working on them all the time. Some people enjoy that. I don't really have customers that come to me and say, hey, you know what? I want something that every Saturday I can work on this for 3 or 4 hours. So we don't do that. Our approach is to give low maintenance. And when you need to do maintenance, it's easy to take care of. So it's a very thought out and careful approach to how we build and equip our ponds. So we kind of take care of those apprehensions on the front end.
So other thing which I learned before having a pond, my concept of water in your backyard was, technically speaking, just a pool where you use chemicals. Um, I had no idea when you have fish what you could do. You introduced me to what's called a beneficial bacteria.
Yes.
Can you explain and like just food and those two things, because how simple those two things are?
Sure. When you're dealing with water quality and clarity issues, um, there's a couple of approaches with ponds. You can do chemicals, but if you choose a chemical path, that's the road you got to follow. And your pond becomes something of a chemical pool rather than truly a pond, because you're using algicides and herbicides and all these chemicals to try to control the environment. Our approach is to work with nature, not against nature. So we use bacteria, which is, think of it as a probiotic for your pond. People are familiar with probiotics. These are bacteria and enzymes that help to create low nutrient water, which is very important in having water clarity and water quality to keep healthy livestock, fish, plants, whatever else is in there as well. There's frogs, there's birds, there's all sorts of things to consider. But you can't do both. You can't do chemicals one day and then try to do the natural way the next day and try to alternate that, which people struggle with. I don't think they just realize. That's where I come in and help to try to educate people and say, here's what you can use. It's all natural. You can put it in your pond. Your animals can drink from it. Birds can drink from it. It's a naturally occurring enzyme that you just supplement. And that's how we approach it. And it's very successful.
So really what needs to be done with this pond, and my own experience, and I'll share with you, you feed them twice a day. Even I think once a day would be enough, but when you have fish, you go crazy. They don't talk, so you think that they're hungry.
Always hungry.
So it's one of those things. So really, it's feeding them twice a day, which is just going in, enjoying the water, the sound, and throwing a bit of food. That's one thing. Once a week, a spoon of that beneficial bacteria. And then there have been times you have told me to put something else to balance the water out. Was there something?
There's other, if you have algae issues, there's other formulations of bacteria that will specifically target algae. That's probably what I would have suggested.
So, the other thing, which is that there are filters both in on both sides of the pond where the water is moving. So one of the filters, which is towards the bottom of the pond, you take that filter out and rinse it out once a month. Or if you don't, I have trees, so I do get a lot of leaves in it. But if you don't, you might not have to do it once a week, but sorry, once a month. But other than that, there's not much upkeep.
Correct. Yeah. What we do is try to create. So there's filtration. When I think of filtration, a lot of people think of a filter. I look at the whole profile of what's happening with the pond. So our filtration is the components that we install, like the skimming system and the biological filter. But we also aerate the pond. We use aquatic plants to absorb nutrients, and we use a gravel substrate and use natural stone in the pond too, which is pretty and aesthetic to most clients. To me as a builder, I realize the functionality of it in helping to clean and maintain a pond. It's a quiet, passive way to do it, but again, very, very effective way to do it as well. So you have filtration happening on all these different levels and all these different ways, and when they all come together, it just creates optimal conditions, water clarity and healthy environment for fish, and everything just kind of runs nicely.
Excellent. So I think talking to Mike, you would be educated a bit. I think a lot of information was passed, and as a consumer, I'm very excited and very happy with my pond. I think it's 7 or 8 years. It's not 10, that's for sure,
Yeah.
But long enough. And the reason I wanted to bring Mike to you was, one, nobody talks about these things. It's a beautiful thing to have.
It really is.
And as I always say, be about and around with me. And these are things I enjoy. Gardening, we will, food and spices and everything. Pond is another thing. So I just wanted to share my experiences with you. And that's exactly what this channel is about. Mike, do you have any parting words?
Yeah, I think ponds are a wonderful way to enjoy being outdoors, enjoying your yard, enjoying nature, enjoying gardening. It appeals to everybody from 2 years old to 102 years old. There's always something somebody will find about a pond that they can relate to. Maybe it's the plants, maybe it's the fish, maybe they like plumbing and pump systems and the engineering aspects of it. Who knows? But it has a broad appeal, and I encourage people to take part of it. It really is. It even what it adds to your backyard as far as offering up resources to wildlife. Birds are going to show up, deer are going to show up, other critters will show up, and your pond becomes a critical resource to those animals that they can utilize year round.
Which for a gardener is not a good thing. Critters and deer. Birds are fine, and what I've learned is I've seen birds around my pond that I've seen in pictures or movies or whatever, but never some colors that I've seen around me. But because of the pond, I've started seeing colors of some birds that I have to go on the internet and figure out what that bird is.
Yeah.
And that becomes another interesting aspect of it.
If you're into bird keeping, having a pond is better than a bird feeder.
So again, as I said, hope you learned something from Mike today. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll meet again. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.